speaking of Colin, I'm on Constellations on Friday, and it's always a good time. I love being on their shows. I always appreciate them asking me. He'd already platinumed Astrobot, right? And towards the end of the conversation, we got to talking about sort of, you know, how I banged the drum about games should have procedural AI difficulty scaling so everybody can enjoy the specific experience the director wants them to enjoy, regardless of skill level, blah, blah, blah. And I understood his point, which is he didn't like that for the most part. And he understood my point, which is I like that very much. But it wasn't until he said something, and I'll tell you what it was in just a second, where I was like, oh my God, I finally get this. I get what he's talking about. And it was kicked off by, I'm going to show you this clip while we're talking. This, if I'm correct, is the final part of Astrobot. They say there are 300 robots you need to collect, but there's actually, as we know, if you've been following this, there's 301. And the final one is apparently the hardest challenge mode you can get. And I'll just let this play while we're talking. But before I had talked to Colin, I had watched this and I was just like, there's no way in God's green fucking earth that I would ever get this far, let alone get this far and be able to achieve this. But this guy, whoever he is, tweets it out and says, I did it. Like he clearly had spent a long time. Yeah. Colin said it wasn't that. It would be very difficult for me. Okay. Regardless though. So as we got talking though, he brings up Cuphead. And he started to ask me about, well, so you're saying that like Cuphead, something clicked, and I don't remember. I'll have to listen back to it when he publishes it tomorrow. But something clicked where I recognize that there are games out there, and this is probably one of them, that people look at as much, if not more, of as sport, even if they are just single player like this. And Cuphead was the one that got me to see that, where I was like, it never occurred to me, even though I love the art style in Cuphead, it never occurred to me to think of single player games like anything other than narrative adventures that I want to go on. Right. I don't look, I look at multiplayer games as a sport. And I love that. I'm not good at Call of Duty multiplayer, but I adore it. Similar with Marvel Snap, although I'm better at that or whatever. But I've never, like when I bought Astrobot, my take was, oh, I want to go on this cool adventure of Sony nostalgia and the graphics look cool and the world looks cool. And I thought it was going to be more about a single player, not narrative with cutscenes, but just like it was about showing me a good time. And it was fascinating to hear that Colin's take on this and similar games and Cuphead was more about, oh, no, I like the challenge. I want the challenge. It's not that he wasn't necessarily looking at it as a narrative or whatever, but it clearly to him, when he got stuck, his mind goes to, oh, okay, I got to figure out how to beat this. And when he beats it, there's satisfaction. But for me, when I get to those places, that's usually when I shelve a game. Every now and then I won't in Elden Ring, but there's a very specific reason why. And once I realized that, and then I went back to it, and I'll tell you where I'm at in the game, and you guys can say it. I don't care. You guys, like I see in the chat right now, you guys are saying, well, Jaffe, Hawkins says, it's not that bad, Jaffe. Like it only took me 5 tries. Okay, but it was for me. So here's where I'm stuck in the game, all right? And I'm not stuck because I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to make a video about deleting it, and I'm going to feel so good about deleting it, even though I think it's great. I think it's an excellent game. It's not a knock against the game at all. But I got stuck on the 4th boss, which is the chameleon guy. And I'm not stuck on him because I don't know what to do. It's very clear how you beat the guy. And I've made it all the way to the final section where his tongue comes out, and I keep forgetting that I have to get out of the way of that. But by the time I get there, I tend to have lost all my do-over cards that float behind Astrobot, because my depth perception, for whatever reason, it makes, in particular, Astrobot very difficult. There's a lot of precision jumping, and maybe the reason I like Crash 4 more is because a lot of the precision work in that game was side view when it asked you to do those things. But in this game, You control the camera. You don't have to, but it's a pain to have to keep double tapping circle. And it was, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. But I realized though, that it's supposed to be that you're supposed to have sections where it frustrates you, and then you're supposed to push through them and feel good. And when I realized, oh, I don't like that, I'm not interested in that at all, it's kind of opened up a whole new world of the kind of things I want to play now, right? Because as much as I like the IP of something like a Stellar Blade, I don't want challenge. I really don't. I do not want challenges in my games that I don't think I'm equipped for. If it's a strategy game, an adventure game, a puzzle game, a cinematic action adventure game, cool. But I don't want to be challenged anymore. And I probably never really ever did. And that, I know that's like, so what? But for me, that is a big deal because I never thought about games that way until I was talking to Colin, and I was able to kind of put those words to it based on him talking about Cuphead. Like it was an achievement that he had solved this kind of sport challenge, and he liked that. And I'm like, oh, I fucking hate that. I fucking hate that. Hawkins says, Jaffe, that's a damn shame because the game is so damn good, even if some of it can be a bit fucking maddening. I don't have time for fucking maddening. I'm not interested in fucking maddening. I don't know what that says. Maybe it's getting older. Maybe it's that I never I never came to video games because of challenge. I came because I wanted interactive experiences. I wanted to go on these adventures that I saw in the movies and read about in books, but I wanted to be the star of those adventures. I was not interested. And in fact, I would argue that the more a game becomes challenging for anyone who plays, the more you get extracted from the immersion. You're immersed in the play of like, okay, remember this is the pattern, this is the telegraph move. I get all that. But you're no longer in the world of Astrobot or Kratos or whoever it is that's providing you with the challenge when you're fighting the Valkyries or whatever. You have left that behind, and now you're just trying to solve a puzzle or win a sport. So it's very interesting to me. Gimpy says, I'm just here to vibe with the game. I'm with you, Jaffe. The second it wants to be a pain in the ass, I'm out. There's something about, this is one of the things I love about game design and I love about video games, but it's also incredibly frustrating because there's something about, yes, of course, everybody is going to bring their own shit to every song they hear, movie they watch, book they read. But in video games, it is so, even a game that is clearly great can be so much more divisive than any other art form I find. Not any. There you can pick a painting or whatever. I get it. But on the majority, games are going to be more divisive simply for that reason, is that you come to a game and you're expecting something totally different, or what you love about it. The game may market like, oh, go on this cool adventure, sci-fi, sexy adventure with Stellar Blade. But what it really should be marketing, I haven't played except the demo, but is like, yeah, there is that as the trappings, but you're going to be learning patterns of bosses, and you're going to be exploring a lot to find the items with the only thing in mind of, I need to level up Stellar Blade to get a new costume so I can go beat this boss or something. I just think it's really interesting. I don't like it because what I want is the adventure. I want to go on a great playable story, unless it's specifically multiplayer. Brett Moore says, I'm a little sad you won't experience what's left of the game. Yeah. If I really want to, I'll watch it on YouTube, but I just have, it's too much work. It's too much work. And it's too, I don't like the feeling of frustration. Like a lot of you guys seem to really like the feeling of frustration, and then you come out the other side, and that feeling is worth the frustration. For me, I get nothing out of coming out the other side. So I'm just kind of like, okay, I'll move on. Hawkins, thank you, buddy. He celebrates 30 months of memberships. He says, this goes back to my view on how AI is going to be amazing for organic difficulty. Astrobot has spots that are maddening. I'm with you. And I agree. There are games, and maybe Astrobot shouldn't be one. Maybe Cuphead shouldn't be one. And I think that's what Colin was kind of discussing or suggesting, which is like, if the game is meant to be a sport game, and that's what the developer wanted, then of course I absolutely support it. But in a game that's clearly like, The Last of Us Part 3, if that came out and it was as hard as Bloodborne, I would have a problem with it.